was trying to get in touch with me for the last few days. I live on a farm outside Bangalore. So the phone connection is not very great. So he had difficulty. He could get in touch with me only yesterday. So I have had very little time. And in any case, I didn't want to come with a prepared lecture or anything. And he asked me that if I could come share my thoughts on Gandhi. So what I will do is, this is not going to be a, Come. Maybe speak to you in 3 parts. It will be both in the form of sharing my thoughts, not so much structured as disjointed statements, I will be throwing at you and telling stories, perhaps, if necessary. So the first, perhaps I'll share with you how I came to Gandhi. And the second part will be slightly intellectual, philosophical, and reflect on his major ideas like the notion of truth, ahimsa, and other things. And lastly, we will see how Gandhi, if he has got his struggle, and his ideas have anything to offer us today. So that perhaps we could examine. So let me start how I came to Gandhi. I came to Gandhi rather very early. I completed my schooling, joined National College. Have you heard of National College? Have you seen National College, Basavangudi? Probably some of you are all from outside. That was a very reputed college those days. Why reputed? Because 10 out of 10 ranks, PUC ranks, came to National College. Adrinda adu bahala famous adu. But I like the teachers there. I heard they were very good teachers, and so I went and joined. And then I found that the principal happens to be a Gandhian. By then I had been already drawn to Gandhi, and the principal happened to be a Gandhian, a very famous person called H. Narasimhaya. Probably, not many of you know. So he was quite a legend during his lifetime, and he was our principal. And how did Gandhi influence me? I was really completely bowled over. I took it to my heart, and he let me enter into my heart, into my being, as it were. So I used to wear khadi pants, khadi shirt, Hawaii slippers, no coffee, no tea, no sweets. Don't look at girls, I had told myself while I was in PUC, but that I couldn't help because there were a lot of girls in my class. No new clothes, even wearing new clothes I used to feel guilty. So it is at that physical level, one started imitating Gandhi. Not completely imitating, He, how he was dressed. I didn't dress that way. I couldn't have gone to college that way. But I tried to live that life. I had taken to that kind of a life very seriously. To lead a simple life, in every sense of the term, and to be very truthful. What did it mean for me, during those days to be truthful? That you should be transparent, you should speak the truth, you should not hide your thoughts from anybody. So this kind of a thing. Gandhi, I was quite so very deeply taken up by Gandhi, and I started reading Gandhi. I remember there was this book called Mind of the Mahatma. It was some 500 pages book. I don't see any new edition of it these days. It must have taken about 3 months or so to read, and really he got into my system. He got into my system so much, in the sense, he became your paradigm, so to say. So you looked at everything, you assessed everything in terms of, Gandhi's philosophy, Gandhi's ideas, in terms of his notion of truth, at whatever level I had understood at that time, his notion of satya, his frankness, his truthfulness, So that was the level at which Gandhi influenced me. And that was the time I think not just I, but my generation believed in the possibility of bringing about a transformation in society. That we have that responsibility. And those days we really believed that we can create a casteless society. Absolutely no doubt about it. And that we shouldn't get married within our caste. We should, move out of our caste. We should, condemn caste system and really build a casteless society. That is another thing. And another thing, right at those days I learned was that all forms of protest must be combined with some creative action, some constructive work. I hold on to that view even today. And I find myself becoming very, very critical of people who are most of the time engaged in the protest mode, Their whole life is dedicated to protesting, against certain things, which is absolutely necessary. We need to protest. But I think along with that, I think the individual, if he is a serious individual, and who wants to work for this kind of a transformation, must also be engaged in some constructive activity. So this is another very important element I learned. And doing physical work. I think that's when I started doing my own little work, not to depend on them. And doing your physical work, not just the mental work. The digging, the sweeping, the mopping. So these are the things I tell you, when we went to Gandhi, he taught us all these things. Not just me, my whole generation, I'm sure all those who took to Gandhi very seriously, he became your model, he became your teacher, you studied him very closely, and you tried to follow these principles, these values. So that's how my journey with Gandhi began. And then, of course, I moved on to the other things, the spiritual literature, the philosophical things. I didn't want to do science, I wanted to do arts. And then I wanted to do literature. From literature, I moved to philosophy, and it went on that way. And I ended up as a lecturer. With job, I retired quite some time ago. How many years ago? Maybe 15 years ago. Yeah. So, but what does Gandhi mean? What are the philosophical, his philosophy, his idea of activism? So let's talk about that. I would like to talk more, I think, about two things to start with. One, his notion of truth, and the notion of ahimsa. Now, by truth, I don't know, what do you understand by truth? It would have been so easy, if nice, if there was some kind of an interaction, with you guys. So what do you think of truth? What is your idea of truth? The notion of truth from the point of view of science, from different religions. Is there one truth or different truths, many truths? No, this was central to Gandhi. First he started saying that God is, this is truth is God. And then he moved to the position that truth is God. He moved from Truth is God too. God is truth. Anyway, his notion of truth is the most important thing, and it's like the great banyan tree from where proliferates all his other ideas. So that is the foundation on which his entire philosophy is constructed, so to say. His notion of truth, from which is derived the notion of ahimsa as well. Now, truth is not something that is given. The truth that religions speak about is not truth. That is a matter of faith, right? What we talk about God, creation, if there is a hell, heaven, you take it by faith. I don't think you question it too much. When you start questioning, you drop these ideas. But anyway, they are all what you call the beliefs, the faith. And what religion gives us is not truth. We need to examine them. So what is truth then? Is it a given thing? No, it is not a given thing. What is truth then? Truth is something, according to Gandhi, we don't know. We don't know the truth. In the sense, we don't know the absolute truth. But we know a relative truth. We know the existential truth. We know the functional truth. You see? This wood is hard, You're all students, So these are all functional truths, relative truths. And there are so many such truths. So all that we have are relative truths. Even the idea of man, for instance, the notion of man is a relative truth. The notion of woman is also a relative truth. The notion of God, too, is a relative truth. So what human beings have been dealing with over the centuries are these relative truths. But the moment we absolutize these truths, the problem begins. You see? So relative truth is all that we have. Absolute truth, I do not know. To know absolute truth is to know God. To know God is to become God, is to become Sarvagna, But I do not know the truth. So when I do not know the truth, what do? I want to know the truth. He was a great quester that way, And to me, he even today symbolizes that quest, that quester, that quest after truth. Yeah, that is another thing that I learned from young age, that I would go after this truth, that I would be committed to whatever I learn, that I would not compromise, and I would not accept anything blindly. I will have to find out for myself. I'll have to find out for myself in the context of my own experience. That is yet another thing I learned from him. Because he would want to put to test everything that you told him. Everything he learned from the scriptures, from the religion, from politics. Everything had to be, had to pass through the test of experience and reason. So now coming back to truth, we do not know the truth. All we know is the relative truth. So, relative truth is all that we have, and from relative truth to relative truth we move. Hopefully that we will be moving towards greater truth and greater truth. And when we are on this journey after truth, since I do not know, I cannot act like God. You see, I do not have the right to terminate somebody else. That is where the ahimsa aspect emerges. You see. Now, ahimsa traditionally meant, avoiding conflict, avoiding injury, do not hurt people. And, in Jainism, ahimsa is a mahavrata, the ultimate vrata it is. You have heard of Salekana, that's some people get into that stage where everything they renounce, they are after nirvana, and that is the time they starve themselves to death. So that is the Salekhana. So you avoid food completely, Even food, taking food is in some way, it means that you are committing violence. Somebody, some form of life is being, killed. This you cannot avoid. So therefore, the ultimate act, non-violent act, is, you deny food for yourself, and you die. And it's better to die that way, and reach nirvana. That's their justification. So that is the Mahavrata, But in Gandhiji's hand, non-violence became an interventionist politics, you see. Non-violent did not mean avoidance. It meant engagement, you see. It meant engagement. So in this pursuit of truth, in this journey towards truth, one principle you have to implement, one means that you need to follow absolutely is the non-violent means, is the ahimsa. And in this journey, ahimsa does not mean disengagement, just avoiding violence, or injury, but it means engagement with society, that you participate in society. And through non-violent means, you see in what way you could transform. Because non-violence will keep both the aggressor and the victim, in an open dialogue. It creates that possibility. I have a problem with you. Through non-violent means, I still keep the relationship open. You see, I don't terminate the relationship. So here, non-violence in that sense creates a possibility of the growth for both the victim and the aggressor or the oppressor. So that's how it is seen. And it creates more and more possibilities for society to move towards greater truth, and hopefully realize these great values, values such as dignity, autonomy, justice, and ultimately the spiritual liberation. Even for spiritual liberation, even for moksha, for nirvana, you need to create an atmosphere. You need to create an environment where the pursuit of this highest principle is possible. When there is violence, when there is conflict, when there is too much of chaos, even a spiritual pursuit is not possible. How do you do that? So that way I see Gandhi as a modern acharya. When we talk of acharyas, we talk of Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, and others. The ones who interpreted the Bhagavad Gita, the Brahma Sutras, Upanishads, for us. But I think he was a really great acharya. Acharya in the sense, one who looked and re-looked at the Indian culture, Indian philosophy, and tried to understand and interpret the Indian philosophy in the context of the present day, problems, aspirations, values, goals. So that way, he was a great acharya. The kind of changes he brought about, I think we need to just dwell briefly upon that. Take, for instance, the notion of ashram. Now, what is an ashram? Of course, today's ashrams are, it's almost a bad word. It becomes centers of wealth, and all kinds of things happen. But ashram traditionally meant, space within society or outside society where you went to practice silence, to study the spiritual text, do your sadhana. But in under Gandhi's hand, ashram became a space within the society where you not only pursued your sadhana, did your sadhana, you might have done your contemplation, your prayers and your meditation, but along with that you trained yourself as a satyagrahi. You see. You learn to cook there, you learn to mop the floor, sweep the floor, you learn to clean the toilet, you see, participate in prayers, learn to pray, learn to write. You did all this and trained yourself as a satyagrahi. So that's ashrama for Gandhi, you know. And take the notion of Swaraj, you know. For Tilak and Gokhale and a whole lot of leaders, Congress leaders, Swaraj meant the political freedom, independence from the British rule. Gandhi used this very notion and inflated the notion of Swaraj to mean several other things, like the political independence, the social, the cultural, and the spiritual too. You see? So freedom in plural. Freedom is not just one. There are different forms of freedom. You see? So all these forms of freedoms are absolutely necessary. And as a matter of fact, if you were to, I'm sure, find out as to how many hours he might have spent in the political field, in political activities, and how many hours he might have probably spent in the social, cultural activities. I'm sure he spent more time in bothering his head about the social problems, social issues, and attending to these problems. So he was that kind of an acharya who gave this kind of very radical interpretation of things. In fact, just recently, while I was doing some work and I was looking up at some material, I found this very interesting idea of Gandhi according to idea of God according to Gandhi. You will find this probably very interesting. In some place, he says, he has different descriptions. His Rama was not the historical Rama. His notion of Ramarajya is not some throw back to some mythical age. And about God too, he's talked quite a lot, but this description, I was really drawn to this description. He says, I don't mind calling, describing God as Maidan. Have you heard of this? Maidan, open space, open field. Hindi word Maidan. Does it ring a bell? No. Yeah. But you see, that connects Gandhi philosophically, spiritually, directly to the 12th century Vachanakaras. You have heard of Akka Mahadevi, Basavanna, Allama Prabhu? No. One of the books there that's been passed around is on Akka Mahadevi. And these are 12th century poets, mystic poets, very revolutionary. I think you should, at some stage, acquaint yourself with these times, particularly Akka Mahadevi and Allama Prabhu. So their notion of Shiva, their Shiva was not again the Shiva with snakes around his neck. You see, their Shiva was very different. For instance, you have the Shivalinga. The Shivalinga, according to a whole lot of people exposed to Western education and anthropology, would interpret that as a phallic symbol, which indeed it must have been, no doubt. But a symbol also undergoes transformations. We charge these symbols with newer meaning and newer meaning. That's what Gandhi did. Some scholar might say even cross is a phallic symbol. I have heard and have read all that stuff.
See? But when a believing Christian goes to the church and looks at the cross, I think he comes about different emotions, isn't it? It triggers something very different in him. The same thing about the Shivalinga. It might have started as a phallic symbol, but later on, it started meaning different things. For the Vachanakaras, 12th century Vachanakaras, Shivalinga meant the pillar of light. You see? The pillar of light is a symbol that, comes, you might see this coming up again and again in different spiritualities of this country. Very interesting that is. So Shivalinga was a pillar of light for them. And the Shiva was the absolute infinite principle, not with an image. And the other word, which was a very profound word, as linguistically as profound as the word nirvana and moksha. Even today I feel Bayalu is the word they used. Bayalu means open field, open space. So in that sense you could say that Gandhi connects with the 12th century Vachanakaras when he said, I don't mind calling God Maidan, because there is the Maidan, the open space, and there is this vast, infinite sky. To me that is good enough description of God. That's what he said. So this way he was a very revolutionary guy. The way he turned certain things topsy-turvy is amazing. You see, and one can go into different things like his practice of brahmacharya and other things, and how revolutionary, very different he was. I see. When, for instance, Meera goes to Varanasi, when she goes to want to go there, there is one of these Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's follower. She wants to go and meet him. He sends word saying that I will not meet her, I will not meet a woman. And Meera sends back a message saying, I thought God was the only man, I didn't know you competed with him. I see. So, what was I saying? See, the notion of God, even the notion of God, for instance, the way they talked about God, very amazing. He was not temple goer. He didn't go to temples. He might have gone there sometimes to, see the architecture and appreciate and admire the great construction and all that. He was not a temple goer. But today what we have done is how a rebel Gandhi, for instance, has been domesticated for just Swachh Bharat, for instance. I think it is a brilliant move, in a way, by somebody to not to reject Gandhi, not to keep him away, bring him into this room, make him sit here, and make him talk about, keeping the room clean, keeping the campus clean, Swachh Bharat, not make you, ask questions or, rebel against anything. First of all, don't ask questions. So, now I think I'll come to the last part. Maybe it would be good if you have any questions, I would be too glad to answer instead of giving this lecture. Does he mean anything to us today? I think he means quite a lot. To me, though I don't talk in terms of relevance or irrelevance, if Gandhi didn't mean anything, I shouldn't be speaking about him at all. It's absolute nonsense. So these are all living things, In a way, this is the continuity of certain things. This is the rebirth. The ideas take rebirth in different minds. To me, this is the rebirth, real rebirth. So Gandhi, in that sense, is a living phenomenon for me. He symbolizes that quest in me. He represents that quest that I too have. And this rebel Gandhi, in fact, when we talk of Gandhi in detail, we distinguish between the England Gandhi, and the South African Gandhi, and you have the 1920s Gandhi and the 40s Gandhi, So the 20s Gandhi was a rebel Gandhi, extremely rebellious. So this rebellious Gandhi today, as I told you, I think it's worth repeating. There are attempts to domesticate this energy and make his relevance only to Swachh Bharat and things like that. No, I think he is one who really asked great many questions, and some of them are very disturbing questions. You must know that when he was killed, not only a particular party headquarters, members distributed sweets, a lot of religious centers, ashrams run by upper caste Hindus, distributed sweets. So he was seen a danger. This is the whole problem. We call him a Mahatma, the ones whose heart, bleeds for the poor. Great soul. The Orthodox Muslims who wanted Pakistan very badly, they thought of him as an enemy of Islam. A very crafty Hindu, a veiled enemy of Islam. The Hindus, Orthodox Hindus, especially the upper caste Hindus, thought of him as an enemy of Hinduism. He's an enemy of Hinduism. And what is he doing to this great country? They were deadly against two things. One, they thought he was feminizing politics. This is again another revolutionary aspect of Gandhi. I'm afraid I don't think we have that much of time. Huh? Okay? Yeah. See, his notes, that takes us back to his notion of the human, the notion of man and the notion of woman, and the notion of moksha or liberation as well. He was influenced by, no doubt, some of these Rai Chand Bhai, during his young days, and then maybe Tolstoy, Ruskin, Thoreau. He was influenced by all these guys. But the main influence, the deeper influence, I think came to him from his deep and study and understanding of Indian philosophy. By Indian philosophy, I include Jain philosophy, Buddhist philosophy, and all the other different streams. We have had hundreds, thousands of streams in this country, And we'll have to let these streams be what they are. We need to have to, put them all together and call it Hinduism. Even that is not necessary. And he was for that kind of tremendous pluralism, and he himself represented in his life and living and struggle that tremendous pluralism. So he was critical of these people. He was critical of, for instance, the Orthodox Christians who were involved in conversions. They felt very uncomfortable with him, very, very uncomfortable with him, because he challenged them and he told them, why do you do this? Live the spirit of Christ, Jesus, is missing in your lives. You will have to be living example of that love and compassion that Christ represented. Instead, ease is the way to carry the message of Jesus to different corners of the world and the country. They were involved in some of this conversion business and all that. So he was very critical. He was critical of, for instance, women, Muslim women wearing burqa. Sometimes he spoke very vociferously about these things. And once he was asked by some of this, maybe some mullah or some leader of the Muslim community, you have no right to talk about Islam. You can go talk about your Hinduism. And he said, no, because I am also a Muslim, because you'll have to be ready for this. I am also a Muslim because I am a good Hindu. And being a good Hindu, I am also a good Christian. And being a good Christian, I am also a good Buddhist. So his definition of religion was really something very revolutionary. And that's how it should be. Religion is not belief, it is behavior. How you behave yourself, how you conduct yourself, how you sit, touch another person, speak to another person. That is your religion, not the costumes that you wear, or the different other adornments you have, or the beliefs you carry. No, behavior. So when it comes to terms of behavior, now what do you call? So people recognize this. People recognize this. And that's the reason why they said, if there were a really true, genuine follower of Christ, Jesus, this was the man. You see? So he questioned all these. And his identity, while he was asked, okay, what are you? He might have said, I am a Hindu in the beginning, and then I think he started saying, I am a Sanatanist. Even the word Sanatanist today is problematic, hugely problematic, because some groups are using the word Sanatanist to mean something else, you see. A Sanatanist is one, who belongs to that ancient times, the timeless time, as it were. And identifies himself with all that is there. And that's what he said, in fact, that he is the inheritor of all the ideas, all that the humanity has produced. How can you deny that? This is yet another thing that I learned as a student, and I'm very proud of that, although I can't exercise that right too much these days, I can't interpret every one and every book, see, that will not be accepted perhaps. But I really believe that I am the inheritor of all these beautiful and ugly things the world has produced. What else am I? I think that's a true fact. To call myself that, because I am born in a Hindu family, doesn't mean that I am a Hindu. My identity, my personality can't be circumscribed by this simple fact. The historical or sociological fact and the biological fact can't limit it, you see. It can't limit it. So Gandhi was that kind of a person, that kind of a universal person. He had absolutely no hesitation in talking about, all these things, because he felt he had the right. Because he felt really, genuinely, that he was a genuine Jew, a genuine good Muslim, a good Christian, a good Buddhist. So that brings us to what is happening with regard to the problem of identity today. I think that is where perhaps we could learn a couple of things from Gandhi. I think these identities are hardening today, right? They are becoming very hard and too hard. Is it? There's this beautiful book by Amartya Sen about this whole politics of identity. It's a beautiful one. So identities are hardening, and they are creating this exclusiveness. They are creating these huge walls of separation. Amartya Sen, for instance, just now I mentioned, he says all these identities are functional. And these functional identities have become absolute identities, you see. And he says we are made of multiple identities. But sometimes, for different reasons, certain identities get privileged over other things. And for political reasons, some identities are, manipulated, used. See, when you are sitting there, coming to college, carrying a bag, books, you are a student. Don't you think of yourself as a student? Definitely think of yourself as a student. You know, at home, you have an identity. With friends, you have an identity. Tomorrow, you go join an office and work for a company, you have an identity. You have an identity, given to you by your language, the language you speak. So there are different identities. We are made of different selves, as it were. But all these identities are functional identities. The absolute identity is something like truth. You don't know. Now, frankly, seriously, do we know who we are? Can you answer that question? If I ask you, what are you? Of course, that's a very deep, philosophical, spiritual question. Ramana kept asking, what are you? Who are you? But ultimately, it's a very interesting question, important question as well. Ultimately, we don't know, right? But there are functional selves. These are all functional. Nothing wrong with it. All this is beautiful. But we are absolutizing that, you see. Once we absolutize these identities, put up walls, privilege these identities, then the problem begins. So to Gandhi, therefore the notion of nationalism, the idea of a nation, the idea of man, the idea of woman, they were all functional. He believed that there was a woman in him. And for quite a number of years, it's a very interesting phase, He was in search of himself, as it were, the woman in him, and tried to bring the woman out of him. Interestingly, Manu Gandhi, who was his grandniece, who has written a book, about diary, about her days. She's called the book My Mother, Gandhi, My Mother. A very interesting thing. And for a whole lot of people, he didn't seem like a man. This may sound a little out of the way, but it's quite funny and very interesting. I think one of the biographers recently I read somewhere, Guha quotes her. Her little one, this was ages ago, in her book she has written a long time back, a little one, saw the picture of Gandhi and said, Dad or Mommy, you think he has a vagina? She asked. And the father said, no, he has no vagina, he has a penis, father said. Oh, I thought he has a vagina because he looks so nice and kind. No, this is very interesting kind of, little information. Did he really look like that for that little girl? So, for a lot of people, he didn't look as if he was that man, that manly thing. No. And that could be the reason why Manu Gandhi, called him a mother, my mother. You see? And he really believed that again takes him back to the Bhakti movement, the Vedanta, during the Bhakti movement, lot of even male bhaktas. What do they give up? They give up their wealth, they give up their caste, they give up everything, and they give up their gender identity too. You see, they give up their gender identity too. That's the reason why I quoted Meera. When the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu follower said, I won't meet a woman, because God is the only male, so to say, in some sense, So, a male bhakta transforms himself in such a way that he is no more a male, so that he becomes fit enough to meet his God. You see. Because you will have to give up all identities. You will have to empty yourself. It should become Maidan, open space to go and meet with, your God, if there is one. I think this is the most important thing, and into which is tied up the other things. I hope you got it now. The identity thing, the truth thing, and the ahimsa thing. All these three are tied up here. You see, if you really believe that truth is something that we do not know, but we consider something as truth, as a matter of faith, not because we have found out, or because you have experienced it, but because it's just a matter of faith. But actually speaking, truth is not something that we know, but we are after truth. We are all questers, all right, but we do not know, and therefore we do not have the right to put down somebody, to terminate somebody's life, to destroy things. That right I do not have. And related to this notion of truth and ahimsa is also the whole identity question. The identity also, I think, is something that personally also I am very interested, is something that we do not know about. I think it would be much better if you call yourself the child of the, you are made of the star, the dust of star or something. That's okay. That's okay. But these are all very functional things, the religious identity, even the gender identity, and they're all functional things. So that way, I think Gandhi's ideas, the things he stood for, challenges today's some of the political structures, some of the political discourses that are, in circulation today, and more importantly, I think this very ugly politics of identity, this whole ugly identity business that is going on and on and on. I think it is dirtying our minds, dirtying our place, and we need a broom stick called Gandhi to clean this up. I think there he will definitely be very useful. Thank you very much. If you have questions, maybe I'll answer them. Bad time to discuss, because after lunch usually difficult, no? That's okay.
I think you briefly mentioned, but can you just sort of add in terms of what he or his philosophies mean for today? Because in today's times, what is its relevance, and what can we learn from him in today's times?
His whole understanding of politics, of religion, I think all of them are the pointers. That is where we can learn from. You know about the politics. You have heard this talisman he gave. You have. So these are all the things that could really help us. Whatever we are doing, is it going to be useful for the poorest of the poor? Would this step I am going to take wipe every tear from every eye? I think this is the litmus test. This is the talisman. So there are hundreds and thousands like that. And his whole idea of truth and non-violence to me are very important. Particularly his idea of truth. I think all of us, this is the most, to me, personally also, most enraging thing when I meet with people, when I see what is going on, because we seem to have arrived at some conclusion. We know. Really do you know? What is it that we know? We don't know quite a lot of things, but people, behave as if they know everything, and they are trying to impose whatever they think is right on the others. So that's why what I told you, the notion of truth, the notion of identity, is all tied up, it's all linked. One leads to the other. See, one leads to the other. They are all like the different branches of his philosophy. His notion of ashram, his notion of trusteeship. If he was not assassinated, we don't know how more revolutionary he would have been. I would have really loved to know what he would have talked about trusteeship, for instance. That's a new, I don't think some of you would know that, therefore I'm not going to go into it. Yeah, please.
Wait. The same trustees, the issues that you were talking about. I just want to know if you can, or if you find any similar aspects in the truths, the relative truths that Gandhi, the I don't know the truth, the I don't know that Gandhi says, and the I don't know that UGK says, UG Krishnamurti says. So his most of the I don't knows in all over the world has been institutionalized. The only I don't know that doesn't have been institutionalized is UGKs. So I just want to know how similar the idea of truth, maybe relative or functional, both Gandhi and UGK, is there any similarity that you can?
UG, I don't know, many of you may not know. Okay, I'll give you two metaphors. Maybe these two metaphors are good enough. Sira. So I one time I wanted to write about India. What does India stand for? Is there such a thing as an Indian mind? What A.K. Ramanujan started, that famous essay. Is there such a thing as an Indian mind? And A.K. Ramanujan, talks very brilliantly about it. It all depends on where you put the emphasis. If you put the emphasis on Indian mind, the answer will be different. If you put the emphasis on mind, the answer will be again different. The very question will carry different meanings. So wondering about all that, I began, but I couldn't continue. Maybe sometime later I'll continue this essay. I had decided on how I should end. I'm giving away a very great secret to you, but this is such a sacred thing for me. And when you share this sacred thing, I think its value goes up, it doesn't come down. I have these two metaphors for India, Chandan, brilliant metaphors. You have heard of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, I think, really stood for India. I'll tell you how. You see, he went through all emotions, the whole gamut of the bhakti, bhava. He wanted to experience all that. One time, he became a Rama Bhakta. So he stripped himself naked, climbed over a tree, sat on the tree, behaved like Hanuman. Can you imagine, sir? Can you imagine somebody behaving like a monkey? You would call him a madman. And calling out, Rama, Rama. He literally did this. He embodied the feelings of Hanuman and he became Hanuman, as it were. Yeah? Then he even wanted to experience what this Allah is all about, what Muhammad taught. He went out of the premises of the Kali temple, where he used to stay, and he wore the dress of a Muslim. I think it was an Arab dress. And he did his namaz, whatever number of times. For a week or two, he lived like a believing Muslim. And he had the experience of, he calls it as the experience of Muhammad. And when he had behaved like Hanuman, he had the vision of Rama. He had the vision of Sita. Then he wanted to understand what Christianity is all about. He behaved like a Christian. And he had the vision of Jesus Christ. Now, do you know this part of the story? You don't know, you haven't heard of. So he went through all these emotions, He went through all these emotions. And he became those things which he adored. You got my point. He became all that he worshipped. He became all that he worshipped. He became a Muslim, a believing Muslim. He became a Christ. Not just that. He had the vision of Muhammad. He had the vision of Christ. He had the vision of Rama. He had the vision of Sita. All these emotions he went through. You see. So this is India. You absorb, you take. It is not parakaya pravesha. You don't enter into his body. You make that person, that force, that power, that beautiful thing, whatever that is, that life, to enter into you. You give space. You like Hanuman, you tear open your chest and let Rama and Sita reside in your heart. So this is India. I thought this is a brilliant image, a metaphor for India. It wants everything. It wants to experience everything and make it its own, by which it feels enriched. No doubt about it. And then you have the image of UG Krishnamurti. UG Krishnamurti went through a very interesting experience, which he called it as saints go marching out. There is this famous Christian, carol, saints come marching in, but he called it as saints go marching out. Now, when he went through some biological changes and other great transformations took place, for a number of days he started having tremendous visions. Visions in the sense, when he saw somebody, he also became that somebody. You see? And that is the time, very interesting, that is the time I believe he saw two women, absolutely naked, two women, and he told, sir, I saw these women and later on I found out, these are all visions. Visions in the sense, what has happened over thousands of years of time is all there embedded in memory. You understand? It's like the hard disk, it's like the chip in which the millions of bytes, the memories of all human beings, not just human beings, of animals, everything is embedded in this. So we carry this memory, The Western psychologists called it as, Jung called it as the collective unconscious and all that. So, and these two women happened to be Laleshwari and Akka Mahadevi. And he says he had the vision of Muhammad. And when he had the, sir, how was Muhammad? Somebody asked when he was selling it. Sir, very handsome guy, sir, he said. Very interesting kind of comments he would make. So he had the vision of Christ. He had the vision of Muhammad. He had the vision of Buddha. I believe the vision of Buddha lasted for a very long time. Maybe because of the impact that Buddha has had on human consciousness. What he says is, these figures who have had a great impact on human consciousness, these are the memories that are coming out. And these memories came out like that, the visions happened, and then they disappeared. They disappeared. They disappeared. So the saints all went marching out. And he says, sir, what was happening? All these memories, good, bad, ugly, whatever, spiritual, whatever, all these are memories. They must go. And the consciousness must become empty. Then it becomes really sacred. It becomes empty and pure. So he used the word flushed out. All the images were flushed out of his memory, his mind, his consciousness. So this is the emptiness that these guys have been talking about. This may be too much for you, but let it be there in your, you can put it in your mind in some corner and leave it there for now. This is what all the great sages have talked about. The emptying, the Maidan, Bayalu, Shunyata, the emptiness or the voidness. So therefore, what is the truth? According to it, if we have to philosophize, if I have to philosophize, is something that you don't know. Because how do you know? What is knowing? Please understand this. Just 1 minute. Give some thought to it. All knowing is in frames and in binary forms, right? Is oppositional. Black and white, man and woman, good and bad, happiness and sorrow. So your knowing, your narrative, your story construction, you're talking to yourself, talking to another, is framed in this language. All knowing. So if there is a truth, logically you can appreciate this. If there is a truth, then the mind, which is caught up in this binary mode of thinking, of black and white, cannot understand. Then how can it understand? It cannot understand that it has to understand. When it understands that it cannot understand, then it becomes what it becomes? Quiet. When it becomes quiet, then the unknown is there. The truth is there. Now you got the secret of all these sages and philosophers. So that's the secret. So that is the ultimate thing. That we'll talk about later. We'll not go there now. But that is the ultimate thing. At least intellectually you should be able to understand and appreciate this. So to Gandhi too, who belonged to this stream of thought, truth is unknown. We do not know. Once you really know and feel that, I tell you, it makes you so humble. It makes you humble. It doesn't make you feel inferior. It makes you humble. But it makes you tremendously active. It makes you tremendously honest, tremendously truthful. You see? Because you don't know. But you want to know, you will know. But all that you know is by the limited mind. What is this limited mind? The binary mind. So that you know always. And keeping that, you move from truth to greater truth, relative truth to relative truth. Hoping that you will reach a place, a point where the whole thing will dissolve and then you don't know. Thank you. Sorry, sir, I didn't answer your question directly.
Thank you for this talk. Many things that you said, I'm sure they're very difficult to understand, but like you said, maybe eventually they will bloom in our mind.
Yeah.
Some things. So this, I just wanted to ask, what did renunciation and fasting mean to Gandhi, and in his life? Like we spoke about how he took things in the past and made it his own. Something that you said India also does. So what did this mean to him?
Yeah, thank you for asking such a wonderful question. Take this renunciation itself, You may ask this question and you can amaze yourself by asking this question and knowing that Gandhi could sleep well. While his co-workers and associates, would spend sleepless nights, bothering about this and that, Gandhi, in the thick of problems, could sleep well. To me, this is an amazing thing. I can understand a Bhima. I can understand the Ravana's brother, Kumbhakarna, sleeping well. The Bhimas are the Bhimas, they eat well in the thick of battlefield also. You give them a pillow or no pillow, they want to sleep, they will sleep. Some are really lucky people like that, But Gandhi, who was in the thick of such politics, I think he was a witness to some of the most horrible crimes in this century, And he could sleep well. He could sleep well because to him renunciation meant renouncing the fruits of action. The Bhagavad Gita message. See, that's what he understood. Renunciation was not renouncing, moving away from society. You see, and doing your tapas. In fact, once Meerabhen, I think he tells her, if I wanted, I could have gone to Himalayas, but that is not what I want to do. My search for truth, the transaction for truth has to happen in the thick of samsara, because the notion of truth is also tied up with society. You see? So the search for truth and the realization of truth cannot be outside society. It has to be within society. So renunciation is absolutely necessary, but not renunciation from life, from engagement, but renunciation of the fruits of action. Why you renounce the fruits of action? Baba, you are not the only one, and you are not the only one responsible. You do a certain act. What the consequence of that act would be is not going to be decided entirely by you or by the other person. There are multiple hundreds of factors that decide. Let it happen, it's okay. But I'm not going to be attached to that. You see? I'll still further work on it and keep moving ahead and ahead. So, renouncing the fruits of action. Detached means not to be detached in a relationship, but detached from yourself from the possibilities of getting hurt. Because why do you get hurt? Because you take things yourself too seriously. You are the kartru, you are the doer. No, I am not the doer. You see? See, there is action and there is consequences. There are no actors here. You see? So in that sense, yes, he was. And the other thing, fasting. Yeah, how he turned fasting also as some kind of a weapon, which others call it as, blackmailing sometimes. But how it transformed people. And when I was looking up today, Chandan, I believe when this man fasted, literally thousands of people in the country fasted. Families after families, the whole family would fast. Maybe it may not be children. The father, mother, grandparents, they would fast. Because once they heard that Gandhi is fasting for some issue, they couldn't eat. So the whole country participated in this. And how did it transform them? You see, it transformed them. Once you fast, the kind of effect it has on me. So I would say, please don't fast. Wait, I'll come and sit with you. Let's talk it over. Like this is, to give a simple example, like a woman, wife who was slapped by the husband, starts fasting. She says, I will not eat. Okay, if you don't eat, the world is not going to fall. I'll eat my lunch, and he eats, and the next day, dinner also she doesn't eat. And the breakfast she doesn't eat. And he, that melts his heart. And that exposes the brute in him, the beast in him. And he begins to see the beast in him, really. The fasting of the woman has helped the man to see the beast within him. The moment he encounters the beast within him, he goes and sits by her, if not at her feet, at least by her, and tells her, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Now, shall we eat together? Yes, we can eat together. So, this is a very small example I gave you, So you expand this on a large scale. This is what exactly happened. This exactly happened. One man fasted, and in Calcutta killing, where hundreds and thousands had been killed just the previous 2-3 days, came to a standstill, which the Indian army couldn't do, in other places, because the army was dispatched to put down the partition riots in 46. So fasting has that. Again, the fasting is tied up with your notion of truth, your ahimsa, Now, of course, people are saying fasting, is very important to maintain health, you should fast and things like that. That's a different matter. Perhaps that also has some value. Thank you.
If there are no other questions.
We have time. I'm just wondering if you could share with us what you were trying to do with your play. He's written a play called The Mahatma. I mean, if I can perform this.
The play is based on the Narkali days, these 1946 riots. Before the, India, Pakistan became independent, riots broke out in Calcutta. What happened, there was this clash going on between Congress party and the Muslim League. The Muslim League was, things were getting hot and hotter. They were not sure if they would get their Pakistan. So Jinnah said, we will have what you call the Direct Action Day. So Direct Action Day, the Calcutta erupted into flames, a lot of killing, and then it went to Narkali, where the Muslims were in dominance. And then in Bihar, all this happened. So he first went to Narkali. So that's a very fascinating period because he brought some sanity into, this madhouse called India at that time, really. Two, it's a fascinating period because this is the last phase of his life. And he felt deeply that he is still far from God. He's still not come face to face with God. Why he has not come face to face with God? Maybe there is still some ahankara left in him. Maybe there is still some desire left in him. Maybe there is still some sexual desire left in him. So therefore, if he is purified of all that, then he would have the spiritual power of a Muhammad. He will have the spiritual power of a Jesus Christ and the Buddha, and the people will listen. Not only Nehru and Jinnah, everyone will listen, and partition can be avoided. So it's a very complex situation that time. He really believed that he is not pure enough. So he got into an experiment. And this play is more or less based on that phase. What happened, he and Manu Gandhi and other things. All that was talked about openly and done very openly. Like for instance, Manu Gandhi and he would sleep on the same bed. You see? Now the sleep has a different connotation, a sexual connotation. Not necessarily. They were lying together, we could say. Now, for others this became something, very scandalous thing. Why is he trying to do that? And he would sometimes ask apparently very silly question to Manu Gandhi, did you get any bad feelings? Why he's an old man and she's just 18 years old girl. Why will she get bad ideas or feelings about? But he asked this question. And what I have done in the play is, this very important thing, in the play, which is also there in the novel which I wrote on this period, Manu Gandhi asks Gandhi, Bapu, tell me one thing. When you touch people, I touch people, when we talk, when we do all these activities, we are all together, I never feel that you're a man and I am a girl or woman. That is not there. But Gandhi, Bapu, why do you want me to be a woman in this experiment? He is blown away. And he feels this is wrong, this is not correct, and the whole experiment comes to an end. I don't know if that is how exactly it happened, but I thought I should offer a philosophical truth in this historical narrative. It was inevitable. So the play is based on that. So all the time, till his death, till his end, you know. Even his death served a purpose, you know. And I think he spoke to the effect that, you know, I'll be speaking from my grave, and he continues to speak from his grave even today. So we'll not go into the details of the play. This is what the play is all about.
You have time for one more question.
So my question was about this interesting kind of drawing on cultural resources that Gandhi was doing. So whether it is on renunciation or fasting or Sanatan Dharma or Ramraj, all of this were existing cultural resources. He was taking them, experimenting with them, doing something else. So Sallekhana, for example, was something else in a Jaina monastic tradition. He made it something else and he experimented with it. And a lot of people kind of related to it because it was connecting to them at a deeper cultural, religious level. The question that I have is also connecting to now, is when you draw on cultural resources, you also know that they can be appropriated back into many other ways, right? It's not only an interesting experiment, it can be a very problematic experiment also. So now that Ramraj has been appropriated in a particular way, is there a way to reclaim it, or is it, when do we say that now we cannot reclaim this? This has just got such connotation, such violent connotation that now if we talk about Ramraj, it's just impossible to. Similarly with caste, for example, it's just, there were a lot of people trying to reclaim caste, saying that, oh, let's not have the existing, let's call it, let's have a different meaning to it, but we will call it same. But it has such deep meanings that somehow some things cannot be reclaimed also. So do you think?
Yeah, very brilliant, the way you asked to put the whole problem. You see, we cannot run away from these such battles. If Gandhi, I appreciated, admired him for the way he renewed certain cultural values, cultural resources, you know, he picked from there, and these symbols and icons were renewed and charged with newer revolutionary meaning. You cannot deny that right to somebody else, you see. But it has to be contested. It has to be contested. This is what I see completely lacking. I think putting down people, bashing up people, intellectually I mean, they bash up physically, and we all the time, the intellectuals are involved in intellectually bashing up somebody or the other. I don't think this is going to take us far. Gandhi wouldn't do that. Gandhi would say, I would challenge you. No, come, let us see history, let us see the books. And there are attempts, no? For instance, Prasanna has written this book called Ramayana, you know? Mula Ramayana, where he speaks about the environment. There was this tremendous awareness about the environment. You see? Now, I have written a story called Shambuka Rama. In that, Rama is in search of himself. My Rama is different. You see? A Rama who is in search of himself. A Rama who realizes that the man in him is so inadequate and limited. And he wants to grow beyond that. He meets Shambuka and sits at the feet of Shambuka, whom he is supposed to kill in Valmiki. Here he becomes his guru. He wants to learn, sit at his feet and learn a couple of things. So here is a Rama who is like, I don't know what this Rama is. I myself is the author, but I don't know. You know, he's like a mystic. He's like Gandhi, who is trying to become woman and then go beyond the gender. What is this Rama trying to do in this story? I see. So there are different Ramayanas. I think we'll have to reassert that. I think it's okay, so long as you have your Rama who is with Bana and Billu, Bana and all that stuff. Aggressive Rama you have, but you can't compel me to have that Rama. You see. I think that battle is still on. We can't run away from that battle. We can't deny the right I have exercised. The same right I cannot deny to somebody else. So it's going to be a long battle, and Gandhi did exactly that. I think people don't have patience and they are intellectually irresponsible, I feel. This is what I feel. They are intellectually really impatient and irresponsible. this intellectual bashing. It needs years and years of preparation. You will have to intellectually build this awareness. It takes time. It takes time. But have you started the work? I think some people like us have started the work. I don't know about others. Thank you.
So we spoke about the truth. What are the characteristics of the truth seeker, and what actions one could take if one would want to walk on the quest of truth?
I think this is also a very beautiful question, because I love this question. I'll tell you why. Baba, these fellows who wear saffron robes, sit in the ashram, is not the only truth seeker. Or the one who does this namaz or this white robe. Everybody is a truth seeker. I think you can wear the dress you want, call yourself what you want, but you can be a truth seeker. A truth seeker is one who, I think, this is how I characterize, who is brutally honest with himself, and he is transparent, he or she. These are the two qualities. Brutally honest with oneself, because I think not with others, with oneself. Why? Why?
Not with others?
No, others you are honest, but more brutally honest with yourself, because you don't want to deceive yourself. You don't want to deceive yourself. People can go, sit in a corner, meditate for 10 minutes, come out and say, I got such peace of mind, You should also try meditation. So these are the lies we indulge in. You understand? I play a little game and say it gives me tremendous pleasure. Did it really give you pleasure? Not that you should go and keep broadcasting these things and talking about truth. To yourself, you should know where you are, what your experiences are. You should not lie to yourself. If that is taken care of, I think truth will come seeking you. It's a way of saying, don't take it literally. If I am very honest with myself, brutally honest with myself, then I'll not fool myself, I'll not fool somebody else, and it changes you. It changes you in ways that you yourself don't know. It's like a power, I tell you. This truthfulness, this tremendous truthfulness, is like a power that changes you, that keeps you always alert and open. And you're never ashamed of accepting your mistakes. So these are the things, some of these things that happen. So that is characteristic of a seeker. And that's how I understand Gandhi. Oh, that is the reason why he led such an open, absolutely open life, transparent life. People who talk of truth, I think, should first start living a very honest, open life, which is the most difficult thing. That's what I think characterizes a truth seeker. And I refuse to associate that with religious guys, They are not the ones. In fact, they are the ones who have become major obstacles. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.